Hi, I'm Leeza Gibbons, and this is a tale of true love.
I said to Paul, I said, I'm going to meet her tonight. I said, I'll do one better. I said, I'll give her a kiss goodnight.
It's about dreams.
But I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I would sit in my room, play my guitar, and listen to my Lynn Ross records, and knew this is what I wanted.
It's about compromise.
I need him to help me as much with the kids and as much with the housework as he needs for me to stand up there next to him night after night and sing.
And it's about understanding.
She needed some pampering, and I wasn't there to give anybody any pampering. Now it's like, I was off.
Exclusive love stories behind country music's hottest couples. Coming to you straight from the heart. Country music's Cinderella superstar. He's a bass-playing maverick, redefining the country sound. Trisha Yearwood's overnight success reads like a fairy tale. But the little farm girl from Georgia never thought her Prince Charming would be a country music renegade.
He's as close to Tarzan as you can be.
Robert Reynolds' group, The Maverick, has risen from the steamy streets of Miami to the top of the country charts. But the real challenge in his career is sharing stardom on the home front.
I don't want to think that because we've chosen lives as entertainers and chosen to be married that we can't have both.
John Barry is one of country music's most unique and talked about talents. His soulful blend of R&B with country has captured the hearts of fans around the world. But the one heart that mattered most avoided him for 3 years. He knew success would mean nothing if he couldn't share it with his true love. A love that would be tested in the face of tragedy.
It's probably, definitely the most difficult thing I had ever gone through.
What's it like to be married to one of country music's hottest stars? Well, that depends on who you ask. And I think no matter how much a couple's in love, it's their differences that make that relationship unique. As you'll discover tonight when we visit with two of the music industry's most romantic couples to find out, is the music sweeter the second time around? Where does love go when we're on the road? And why Cupid's choice isn't always mom and dad. Once upon a time, well, 1964 to be exact, in the small Georgia town of Monticello, a little girl named Trisha was born. By the time she was barely walking, she knew she wanted to sing. Meanwhile, in a faraway place called Kansas City, a little boy named Robert was determined to make his mark on the Nashville sound. As they grew up, Robert and Trisha both found a common love for music. What they didn't know was they could never find true happiness until they found each other. Fairy tale romance? Well, perhaps. But it's also a true story, a love story, torn from the pages of life, and told in the words and music of Trisha Yearwood and her husband, Robert Reynolds.
This is the time of year that all the turtles have said goodbye for the winter. They go to a big party. Most of them that have money go to the south of France. But
Where do they really go? There's a balance now that there wasn't before. I mean, I'm very career-driven. I'm very independent, and I think those are great qualities to have. But I think if that's all you are, that something is missing. Even when, and I can say that when career was the only thing I had, I didn't realize that I was missing something else. You know, I didn't feel like I was missing something else.
we do really well together. We're actually pretty normal people, and we're actually better at being normal people than perhaps being celebrities, if that's indeed what we are at this point.
Everybody knew that I sang, and but I think the expectation in a town like Monticello is that I would teach music or I would lead the church choir.
4 as long as she can remember, Trisha Yearwood has been singing. With a banker for a father and a teacher for a mother, this country girl is a straight-A student who could balance a checkbook by the age of 5, but her heart belonged on stage.
I did the curling iron. Curling iron was a great microphone because it had cord, and that's better than using just a brush. But a brush would also work. And I did commercials in the mirror. I did the whole bit. I did the double back, the whole thing. I did the whole deal.
Show the photo, just this camera right here.
And let's embarrass them on it and television history.
Look at her! Look at her little innocent with the Farrah Fawcett wings. All that practice with the curling iron paid off when Trisha came to Nashville in search of her dream. With the voice of an angel and a degree in music business, she formed a plan. Instead of singing in roadhouses and no-name bars, Trisha made industry contacts as a demo singer, performing for songwriters and publishers. The strategy worked. Trisha signed with MCA, and in 1991, her very first single, She's in Love with a Boy, shot to #1. Along with her hit song came the Top New Female Vocalist Award from the Academy of Country Music and an American Music Award. Since then, it's been sold-out concerts, a Grammy, and a collection of hit albums. Trisha Yearwood's overnight stardom may seem like a lucky break, but she carefully laid the groundwork with intelligence, business savvy, and a tight control over her marketing.
You seem like a lady who usually gets what she wants, and usually knows what she wants, right? Probably, yeah. I always have believed you can have it all, and I guess that's what I'm trying to do here, My parents raised me to believe that I could do anything I wanted to do, and, there were a lot of skeptics, especially about my getting married, I think, to someone else in the business.
While Trisha was rising to the top of the country world, her soulmate-to-be was redefining country music, playing bass in a group called The Mavericks, an innovative country band playing a beer and darts English pub surrounded by Latin clubs in the Cuban section of Miami. The Mavericks seemed to defy description by taking a new approach to old country. The four misfits from Miami have created a unique sound and a reputation best defined by their name.
This identification as being kind of country's coolest renegades. That feels right to you?
It's fun to hear things said about the group, and we know that we came from an unlikely place, Miami, Florida. We know that we approached mainstream country music with a slightly different sound. We're aware of that. Sometimes all of those things are hard to kind of live up to.
With 4 albums, including the double platinum What a Crying Shame, the Mavericks have clearly arrived in Nashville. Their crowning professional moment was winning both Top New Vocal and Top Vocal categories at the 1994 Academy of Country Music Awards and Group of the Year at the Country Music Association Awards. But Robert will tell you, the greatest thing about his musical success was the chance to meet the girl he saw on a music video and couldn't get out of his mind. The unforgettable moment happened in 1992 at the annual Country Radio Seminar in Nashville.
This reel, this MCA reel, was playing 24 hours a day on the TV, and I just tuned in, and there she was. And it all came together. This is the girl. This is the video. Yeah, it's all coming together. I said, this girl, I said, I don't know what it is, but I have like a high school crush on her. It's silly, but I have this feeling that I should meet her. And I said to Paul, I said, I'm going to meet her tonight. I said, I'll do you one better. I said, I'll give her a kiss goodnight. I just thought that...
That's like a guy thing, like the play.
Well, it's really like...
It's a challenge.
Yes, it is.
It was really, if anyone who knows me knows that I'm very skeptical, I'm very cynical, I'm very logical, and I'm not really the romantic, that just believes that, you're going to see this guy across a crowded room, and yet that's really what happened, and it was kind of instant. How did you get to the kiss part?
I just said, listen, I don't know if you've got a date tonight or if plans and you'll be gone, but if I could see you before you leave, I'd love to give you a kiss goodnight. That's within 5 minutes of being foolish.
It's kind of an odd thing to be told. I mean, no guy had ever said that to me before that I can recall. I mean, I'm sure I would remember. But it kind of almost sounds like a line, but coming from him, it wasn't. That was really
stupid.
It's so dramatic and so romantic. How do we pull that off? With a woman like you who was not gullible, who was cynical and wasn't looking for it. I thought this guy's just too good to be true. You know, he cannot be. He's got to be an axe murderer, and I just don't know it yet. He's way too nice. You know, there's just something here. You know, I just thought this can't be.
When we come back, Trisha's Mr. Nice Guy reveals his rather unusual obsession.
I'm a little concerned about these skulls.
I don't have a thing with skulls. I'll tell you that. I really don't. I see skulls as just simply bones and heads.
Trisha Yearwood's straightforward style stretches from country to pop to folk. She's been called the new Linda Ronstadt and the female Garth Brooks, a testimony to the power and versatility of her voice, as well as her stage presence. She's country music's reigning princess, so it's only appropriate she marry her prince in a castle. The star-studded gala was held in May of 1994 at the historic Ryman Auditorium in Nashville.
It was a dream come true. It was everything that I had ever wanted to do. The Ryman being the number one thing. I always wanted to get married at the Ryman because it was a church before. It was the mother church of country music, and it seemed like the perfect place to blend those two things together.
The actual ceremony strikes me as just really brilliant and just special.
When you looked at him and your eyes locked on that day, tell me about that. Standing there with all the people around us and the excitement and the hoopla and everything, that was a very calm and comforting thing to have him right there and to look into his eyes and know that everything's going to be okay.
Following the fantasy wedding came the grim realization that the show must go on, meaning lonely nights, miles apart. The reality of ambitious careers has left a legacy of broken hearts.
What's the challenge for the two of you? What's the hardest part of it?
I don't want to be duped into believing that this sort of tumultuous history of performers being married is necessarily something we're going to inherit. I don't want to think that because we've chosen lives as entertainers and chosen to be married that we can't have both.
He's flown in on a day off, having 8 hours off and taking me to a movie, just to be together. We've been apart for a couple of weeks. He could sense on the phone that I was really needing to see him. And he got on a plane and we went to a movie, and most expensive movie we've ever been to, and I don't even remember what we saw, but it didn't matter. And he flew out the next day.
We come off the road, we've got all this energy from the road, we've got careers, we've got people pulling at us, we've got this sort of constant demand to be this performers, and yet we realize that we're at home, we're not these performers, and Trisha at home is just Trisha, Patricia, and I'm just Robert.
Their precious time between tours is spent at home, an enchanted log cabin on a wooded hilltop just outside Nashville.
What a beautiful retreat from a pretty hectic life. I really view this as kind of our little paradise out here, and I think that's kind of what was missing when we were both on the road, and I really do feel especially it's up on a mountain, it's out in the middle of nowhere kind of, and you get here and it kind of gives you what you need to be able to go back out and work again.
Now, what do you call this room?
This is the great room, as in great big room.
As in great big piece of art. Now, clearly, this is the focal point of the house.
Yeah.
If you're in the room, otherwise you wouldn't see it.
We know one of the men who helped build this house and lay the logs in, and they built the house basically around this piece, this wall. So it's here forever. There's no door or window that this would go out of. So
It's a good thing you like it.
it's a good thing we liked it.
Foolish heart,
If there's another focal point in the home of Trisha and Robert, it would be this one, a combination office den that showcases their unusual collection as well as their personality differences.
So it's a little, you can see the whole personality here. This is Robert.
Yes.
And look at the pristine area. I imagine this is Trisha's little,
Trisha's world.
Trisha's world, where everything is perfect, nothing out of place.
But even her pencils are perfect on the Trisha side of life here.
Right.
Now, do you really work at this desk, or is it just a prop?
Well, it's not a prop, but it is, I mean, it is my workstation, but I end up on the floor with everything anyway.
The collection of stuff that he has.
The stuff.
I mean, did you know that before you married him? That he had toys and...
Yeah, I knew. I used to call them little nests because they were like all little groupings all over the place.
What's in the trunk here behind our crew guy?
The beginning, these are all new pairs, but I'm buying them as I find them because,
Someday they'll be valuable.
well, there are these.
Batman, Spider-Man, it's a superhero. Can I touch these or they?
Well, they're all touchable.
His grandmother told me when I married him, she said, now, this is a habit of his. He has his own nest. And you have to break this. You got to break him of it. Sure. Yeah, if you break him of it right in the beginning, you won't have a problem.
Can you get a close-up of Howdy's mouth? Watch this. Let's see if I can film this.
No.
I made him fall.
That is the greatest.
Can you see his mouth?
I was just in this antique store, and of course I'm looking at the antique armoire, the big stuff,
Right.
Because, and he'll spend hours in a little case and come home with a little bone that he found.
Yes, I'm a little concerned about these skulls, I gotta tell you.
Okay, those aren't as nice as... I don't have a thing with skulls. I'll tell you that. I really don't. I see skulls as just simply bones and heads.
They're a little cute.
Yeah, and the molars have actual little grooves like molars have, and there's a little missing tooth that has a little hole in the...
There are cavities in there. Does anybody totally understand you? Does Trisha understand you? You seem like an enigma to me.
I think she does understand me. I mean, we get along very well on these issues. I mean, she thinks it's quirky, and she wonders sometimes why she would end up with somebody that's sort of the opposite. But I'm a believer that opposites work well, not just attract, but then they work well together.
I don't question these things anymore because I don't really understand all of it, but it makes him happy.
It's when I had my beard, but it is indeed me.
Complete with the earrings.
So I think it's pretty good.
Coming up, we'll put Trisha and Robert on the spot when we ask them to grade each other as husband and wife.
I'd be better in school than
With so much time apart, Trisha and Robert are still almost newlyweds, discovering even the sweetest wedding bells can hit an occasional sour note.
What happens when there are problems, when things go on? Well, Robert is a great communicator. I would not say that I am the best communicator. And I think he has brought it out of me, I'm the one who will, be kind of a jerk, and he won't really know why, and I won't really, I'm the one who will all of a sudden say, why don't you ever put water in a dish in the sink before why don't you let the cereal dry in the bowl? And I'm the one who will lose it over that, and it's really something else.
We don't have major fights. I mean, we're not real fighters, I don't think. But we're both pretty certain about where we stand on things, and we are different people. And I don't think we see eye to eye on everything. So it does leave room for some dispute.
You're very honest with yourself. So honest that you said to me earlier that before this relationship, your career fulfilled all your needs. You got everything you needed, or you thought, out of that. Mm-hmm. So your first marriage versus this experience, totally dissimilar? Yeah, very different. Different in the same in that, in that what I have learned, I was 22 years old when I got married the first time. that was an old maid in my hometown, you know, that it just kind of grew for marriage and growing up in the South. My expectations, I think, of marriage were fairy tale-like. You know, they were, he's going to come by on the white horse, and, you know, I wanted to be, you know, Cinderella. And I still feel that way, but I think my expectations are more realistic. I think I viewed marriage this time as a commitment to working very hard rather than the minute you get married, all your troubles are over and everything is perfect. I honestly can say that he's one of the kindest people that I've ever known. Yet he's not, and he can be serious, and he's very thoughtful. He thinks things through, sometimes to the point that drives me crazy, but that's also what I love about him. He thinks things through a lot better than I do. And, but yet there's this boyish sense of adventure that makes life fun.
I'll get on first.
Okay.
Trisha may get a little jealous. I normally...
He's as close to Tarzan as you can be.
Yeah.
You want kids?
Do I? You didn't say we, right? We're clear, aren't we?
Do you, Robert Reynolds, want kids?
Yes,
with Trisha?
Yes, I do see having kids.
Have you talked about it with her?
Oh, yeah. On a good day, I think we're both thinking about kids. On a bad day, I think I'll become the kid, actually.
It's so hard for me to imagine having a child at the pace that we are at. But I think we both feel like we're not going to be at this pace forever. And I don't expect my career to be over anytime soon. I don't want it to be, and I don't believe that it will be. And as I said earlier, I believe you can have it all, and that includes a family. What kind of score would you give yourself as a husband?
You'd ask that.
What are you like?
I don't know. It's a letter score.
A letter score.
Not a number score.
And what did he say? What do you think he said? I don't know. He wouldn't give himself an A.
I don't know. On a good day, probably a B something or other. But on a bad day, probably C minus. Easy.
Well, you're not failing, Mark. So that's
no, I don't think I fail completely. Well, I don't know. Someone else could probably say I did.
I'll ask Trisha.
You should.
I say an A most of the time. But when he's off, he's like, he's like off. He's good at missing the mark. Yeah. When he's on, he's really, really on. If he's going to be off, he's going to be pretty off. Where are you usually? Oh, I'm usually a C. I'm a C or a B minus. Average. I'd be better in school than I do in marriage. The night that you first met, and he told his buddy, I'm going to meet her, I'm going to kiss her.
Yeah, kiss her good night. It was going to be a night.
What's the first time?
One of these types.
Was it? It was a little bit different.
But it was pretty nice.
It was very nice. It was gentlemanly.
Yeah.
You didn't kiss her on the lips? Yeah.
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
I did.
It was very gentlemanly.
I think I wanted to remember, just for her father's sake, that I kissed her on the cheek.
And so the love song plays on for the Cinderella and the Mavericks, two of country music's favorite performers, living in perfect harmony.
Which one are you? Are you the bass player?
Yeah. Sometimes.
I can never remember.
I'm the Danny Partridge of country music.
Are you?
Yeah, because I pretend to play, and yet I make a living doing it.
Cool.